So Palesa, welcome, and congratulations for being a top 30 finalist for this year. How do you feel?
Gosh, I am pleasantly surprised, because kind of my profile is I just tend to focus on doing right, either at home, at work, or in the community projects that I'm involved in. So when I got the note, actually, my LinkedIn was so busy that morning, Seipati, and I was so confused because it wasn't the day I post. I usually post on a Monday or a Friday. And when I saw it, I thought, oh gosh, how humbling, So really excited. It's a privilege. I mean, I look at everybody who's been nominated up to the shortlist, the stage that we're currently at. And it's really incredible to have your name among such, really incredible women that I admire and look up to, as mentors. So yeah, I'm humbled. Thank you.
Wonderful stuff. So let's get to know you a little bit better before we, get to your trailblazing career. Where was Palesa born, and what was it like, your upbringing, your schooling years, etc., up until maybe varsity?
So I was born in, never mind the hospital, but I'm, girl from Soweto. My mother, born and bred, Godube, and, my parents had me when they were very young, still unmarried, and my father's from the East Rand and Springs. So it's a different and interesting love story in that it was long distance for a while until they eventually decided to settle. And although we settled in the East Rand, which is where I grew up, primarily, I still see Soweto as my home. And I guess because I was closer to my maternal grandmother, that's part of the reason, and I spent a lot of time with her. But schooling wise, grew up in the East Rand. I went to Strubenville Primary School. This is at the onset of democracy. My parents, figured that, I'll have hopefully better opportunities as they moved me from the township school, which was Tsimung at the time. And interesting to be the first Black, student there, and you have to learn English very quickly.
Sure.
So that was one of those defining moments. And it's amazing how the memory still, is so fresh in my mind so many years later. And I went to Springs Girls High School, where a lot of wonderful memories and friendships were made. So the small town really provided that cocooning, I think. And although I was shy, I was quite eager to participate in drama or any activities that tested the creativity in me, So I enjoyed, poetry. I enjoyed being part of the school magazine. At some point, we had a short stint to launch a magazine, and I was part of the editorial committee, and, partaking in the, kind of the leadership role there of really participating in community development. So I think my heart for the community and leaving a place better than what I found it has always been me. That's who I am. And from Springs, I really then went to Rhodes University. And it's interesting because it was the first time I left the province, on reflection, yeah. And at Rhodes, I think my eyes were really opened, Seipati, to meet people from other countries, really started building my cultural competence, But yeah, the oldest rather girl of 3, and both my parents are late, unfortunately, but there were 2 people who were committed to working hard to give us a good life. And like any other child, I guess, who moved from the township to the burbs, etc., I wasn't immune to things that happened in that type of environment. My dad, for one, did struggle with a substance abuse, problem. But, my mom tried to give us a good example and, challenge us to do more and focus on school so that we have better opportunities. And, and I think that's really what's shaped me. Whenever times are tough, I always think about her, and I remember the wishes and dreams she had for me. And that's really kept me going.
Sure. How old were you when they passed on? Were you already in varsity or post that?
So my mother passed away when I was starting matric in the year 2000. And it was quite traumatic for us, the girls, because I was the oldest studying matric. My middle sister was, joining and starting high school. And the baby sister was, gosh, I think 2 years old at the time. So, my grandmother, the paternal grandmother, then stepped in to really fill that role and, shelter us from too much change and feeling the absence of a motherly figure in the home. She literally left her house, Seipati, in Guatemala Springs to move in with us, in Southport.
Sure.
We were in Southport at the time. And, for all it's worth, I think our parents, our grandparents, sometimes we're not perfect either. They're not perfect. There's no manual on how to raise children, but, till this day, that sacrifice she made for us to ensure that we're okay and, we are protected is something that till this day is a reflection of when they talk about unconditional love. It's putting someone else's needs really before yours, just so that they are successful and not expecting anything in return, so that for me was symbolically the biggest act of love, till this date, that I really felt from anyone.
Sure, I love that. I'm almost certain that they're all proud of you wherever they are, for how you've turned out. I mean, you could have chosen any path. This is South Africa, we know how things go. Even people who have 2-3 degrees, sometimes they don't get to actually fulfill their dreams and live up to what their parents envisioned for them. So kudos to you for making them proud. I really believe that they are wherever they are. So the next one I want to find out from you has to do with balance and support, but you've largely touched on support. So after you finish high school, you get into corporate. What is that like?
Sure. The early years, I must say, were more fun. And
okay. I like that.
No, they were really fun. The tasks, the jobs were simpler. The task was clear. The mandate was also quite clear. And I ended up in HR by chance, by the way. So when I finished school, varsity, I was looking for work and I was applying for everything and anything under the sun because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I had done a business related degree, but I still wasn't clear on where my heart is. And because, money was an issue, I had to get a job quickly, the option of taking a break before you decide what to study. I didn't have that luxury. But my results were decent. So I had a bursary from Rhodes and I got a NSFAS loan. And so when I finished studying, I applied for anything. And one of the job posts I applied for, and back then it was, you get a newspaper, you phone, you send the CV or you fax it. I didn't even remember the company because there were so many. Every morning I would send my CV to at least 10 companies. That was my discipline. And, the agent calls back, I secure an interview, I find the place, but I made sure I studied the route, how many taxis to, catch, got there. I didn't even answer some of the questions right, but I got the job, right? And as I said, at the time, the tasks were easier and I got an opportunity to drive the company's first leadership program. And that really, I can't tell you how fulfilling that was. I was like, gosh, if being in HR is about changing people's lives like this, then I want to stay here, And so I did. And it was wonderful. I was, it was Safco Panalpina at the time. It's now called Bidvest Logistics. It's under the Bidvest umbrella, stunning company. I mean, the chairman, Tate Bonang, he's like my grandfather, from
darling.
Our darling.
Our darling dad.
He's so supportive, so incredible. And so I was so young then, and he was somewhere else clearly. But the job was fulfilling because, you are dealing with making offers, advertising, putting people in roles. And then as you go up, and it comes with then my move to Standard Bank, some of the other management consulting firms I was at, it becomes more complex, it becomes more dynamic at the same time. and you start working with issues that are more strategic, with a long-term lens. And so in some instances, you deal with issues that really are a dilemma at a values perspective, right? So whether it be catching leaders who are doing wrong or not necessarily applying the right mind or logic to a situation, right? Or dealing with a situation where the company is not doing well. We've had that, a few times at Standard Bank when I was there. I mean, I was there for 19 years, where, it's your first experience, you're dealing with finance and, a CEO who's under pressure to right size, and it means retrenching, so it gets harder, and so one of the things I've learned, Ceci, is, this notion of applying professional distance. We give our heart, and it's important because we care about what we do.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important to find a safe space for yourself so that you stay impartial, you stay balanced, and say, if we can't avoid right-sizing an organization because there's other pressures, how do we then do it in a way that is humane and holistic? Because if you can't get to that space of balancing, you'll never see the art of the possible, and how to treat a very difficult process differently, right? And so I've learned to do that, but it's come with years of issues of, having crucial conversations or facilitating really, really tricky discussions where perhaps the employment relationship has not worked, and I've had to do that to consciously say, I know I'm a giver. I make decisions from my heart. I care. When people deal with me, they'll tell you they feel I'm real, but it's because that's who I am. And so how do I start putting that as a barrier? Because I don't want to take some of the issues to bed with me necessarily. When I'm home, I want to be Jabari's mom. And I want to be, a good and a present partner to my man. And I can't do that if I keep carrying all the stuff with me, and I want to keep it at that level because it's easy for people to say, find time to exercise. Absolutely, I do that, I do it. I love being in nature. I love hiking. But there's a mental mode that you have to get to and ascend to when you're a professional and you're in a job that deals with high stakes and people, where you must separate. Otherwise, it will eat you up, and so that's one of the things that I'm really proud I've been able to master. And even giving back, when COVID started, I sit on the local community NPO board, and we really are just obsessed with, delivery of services and helping those in need. And one of the things we did was ask for sponsorship from companies, mostly retail, the grocery stores, just to protect families from going hungry. And when you are giving people a box of food, there's a part of you that feels good about helping, but you have to learn to separate, like I said, else all of those people, their faces, their situations, it will haunt you. And you cannot show up and be yourself if you take that to bed with you, So I think that's something that's been quite, a growth spurt for me over the last few years, certainly.
Listen, you are preaching, and it's a message. So it doesn't, it's funny because sometimes you go through it over and over and over again, but every time it happens, it's like a shock to your system. It's like, but you've been through this 8 years ago, so why don't you just like gather yourself and apply the lessons and move forward? It's so many things that you spoke about reminded me of scenarios that I've been through. I mean, the professional distancing, I'm thinking about an incident or situation, or a wave, in fact, of people losing their jobs, particularly in the mining areas like your Rustenburgs and your Witbanks. And those are the three provinces where I was. So they were highly impacted by, the job shedding. So you find the CEOs coming to you and say, like, I really don't know, do I shut down the mine or do I release 40,000 people? Like what do you mean? This is a community. So it really is. And again, the other example of giving and not taking the people's problems with your home.
Yeah.
Even today, I still do that. You have a young woman coming and saying, we need a bursary, and we reach out to the community. And if we don't get the bursary, guess what Seipati does? She goes to the family and says, look, guys, can we just registration then? And it's very important, because ultimately it weighs you down, and it culminates into a burnout eventually, which is something that I want us to talk about next. How's that for you after COVID? Have you experienced burnout? And in your profession particularly, how are your staff members doing? And I mean, just even the fraternity itself, the HR fraternity, what are some of the things that you're picking up from the profession in terms of burnout?
So personally, I have experienced burnout, Seipati, and I almost don't want to just disclose when, but I will say, over the last 5 years, absolutely. And it really manifested in a physical way and mentally. And mentally, what do I mean? So when at home your family says you're not here, you are just tired, you're not interested, you're disengaged. I wasn't sleeping well. And eventually my body broke out in shingles, and when I consulted the doctor, because I was like, what is going on? There's like this band of rash. I don't recognize it. What is happening?
Yeah.
He asked me a series of questions, and in responding, I realized it's as if I've been on autopilot, but I'm tired, right? And even facially, you could see that I'm finished. Like the circles under my eye were they were sinking. I looked like a zombie, that's talking. And I was doing a lot. I wasn't replenishing enough. I wasn't eating. I had too many issues that were keeping me up at night. And I had to take a time out, and really think about a different way to reset and offload the mind, so that when the day starts, my tank is empty and I can deal with that day's issues, right? So those are some of the things, but the timeout was important for me to reset, because when you're at that stage, you must understand, even making the simplest decision is exhausting. Your mind is, it's just, it can't take on any more, From a work perspective, we have not been immune to the after effects of COVID, Seipati. Our staff have also had to deal with the passing of loved ones. They've had to deal with, dealing with long COVID symptoms till this day. And we've worked very hard to really roll out meaningful, support programs. But here's the but. The other issue that we are struggling with, and, most of my industry kind of peers allude to the same thing. It's how are then leaders showing up to assist? Because guess what? HR is not that injection that you're gonna, administer and things are gonna go away. The reality is leaders really influence how people experience their work. Whether you're working from home or the building, it doesn't matter. That's a tool, but it's how you feel about work and how the pressures are dealt. What are the attitudes? And we found that we have a lot more work to do there. Some of the reflections, if I'm being really, really honest, is, at some point for 2 years, companies were on ice. Hiring activity was reduced because everybody was worried about what's going to happen from here on. Businesses who felt it, the profits went down almost immediately, right? And so what do? You look around and you say, oh, here's Seipati, excellent, great, let's promote her. And so we promoted people, but did we prepare people for what leadership is? I don't think we did it with the right attention, the right focus. There was no ill intention in the decision to do that, but that's the other crises, I think, that also contributes to that. It's lots of leaders who perhaps seem to have the stature, but they don't really have the maturity to deal with the responsibility of leading people. And so that, for me, it's we can talk about burnout, but we can't divorce the burnout conversation, Ceci, without talking about some of the things that contribute. And
Yeah.
when people cite work pressures as adding stress or anxiety, you have to look at the system holistically. It's what type of leadership stance do we have? You know, what are our views? Are our leaders prepared? Do they know how to identify when Palesa's actually something is wrong here? You know, I think she's not having a good day. How do I have a coaching conversation? So that for me is some work that we still need to do at an industry level, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah. I really wish this message reaches as many HR professionals as possible. Not only to say that, it's your responsibility, but like you said, even the conversation around leadership, I think every other post, like just as we started with this COVID thing, during and after, I've been saying that this is the moment for servant leadership. You have to really create a conducive environment for your people to be vulnerable, to be able to say, look, do you realize that I lost both my grandmother and my mother within 6 months?
Yeah.
I know of a young woman who lost both her mom and her grandmother, and they were all living together, and her aunt, and now she's just left with her cousin. It's just the two of them. Yeah, very, very, like, she's not even, I think she's just finished varsity. That person, if she's in a work environment, you have to be able to allow her to come to you and say, like, look, today I'm just, it's blurry. I cannot see beyond this day. So I need help. But companies tend to not care about, being intentional about creating such environments. So you guys have a huge role to play. And I'm glad that at least, you are aware and, you're intentional about it. And that's a good start. I think that's a very good start.
We have to, hey, we really have to. I think that's our role, Ceci. We have to see the issues and deal them head on, just really with the intention of leaving a place better and healthier than what we found, right? And
absolutely,
COVID put us all in the same position. So we all have to just help each other, share good practices. It's not a competition, and just make sure that we are all responding and showing up appropriately to support people, because that's what it's about. It's, we were also, I think, connected, because we were all scared. We were facing the same enemy that's unknown. And I think that for me, that togetherness is something that we need to take forward, actually, definitely in solving for challenges.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So let's go back to the person behind the trailblazer. You mentioned along the conversation that you have a child. Is it a boy or a girl?
It's a boy. His name is Jabari. He's 15 as of today.
Okay. Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I wouldn't say that you have a 15-year-old. I'm thinking you're gonna say like 7 months.
Yeah, no, I had him very young in my time. And it's been wonderful to grow with him. I find relationships really teach you about yourself.
Yes.
He's a sweet gentleman. He speaks very well. You can see he's gone to better schools than I did.
Okay.
And no, really, like, he just speaks like he speaks the English of the Queen, really, may her soul rest in peace. But very humble, very smart. I am a single parent. So, there's no relation, with the father, like many people all over the world. And he's quite balanced. So the two of us, he's got quite a big body and I'm small. So when I'm standing next to him, we look like siblings more than anything.
Oh,
wow. But he's very kind and grounded, and I can only thank my uncle and aunt who act as the step parents, the grandma, grandpa, in our lives, for just being the voice of influence in shaping who he is and his values. And I'm incredibly proud of him. He's had a lot of change to deal with, very young. Part of the personal sacrifices that people don't talk about is, besides the long hours, when you're climbing the corporate ladder, I had to make a hard decision of giving him structure, and structure came in the form of boarding school, because I realized then that the early hours, the late evenings, I'm not present. The traveling is intense. And so he needed, an environment that would have a routine for him, because kids at a certain age need that routine to function. And, to see other kids who have parents in a similar work context, so that he doesn't think that there's something wrong with him, right?
Yes.
And so it was hard, as a mother. I lost many sleepless nights wondering if I'm doing the right thing. But when I look at the young gentleman he is, it really was the right decision for our home and our setup. And it's the biggest lesson, out of when you're a parent, or, whatever hard decisions you make, people tend to have so much to say, but actually there's no one blueprint that works, and I think it's so important to be respectful and not to judge. My mom passed when my sisters and I were young, and our grandmother became our mom. So, it's nobody said successful kids will come from a mommy and daddy household.
Yeah.
I think it's important that we normalize that and stop shaming it. And if any, and understanding, so it came with that. But he's really sweet, and he doesn't take me seriously, which is wonderful for me, because I will be stressing about something, or I've got this interview, with Seipati, and he's like, can I order pizza? Like, like, you know what I mean? It's your kids just remind you that they just want mom,
Yes.
Whether you are the HR director, coach JSC, or whatever, kudos to you. Like,
they don't care. They could never, not even be bothered. I watched an interview, a Black Coffee interview yesterday, where he said, I laughed my lungs out. He said that one day his son said to him, or he was complaining, you guys have it all. You've got TV. I used to have to go to the neighborhood and peep through somebody's window to watch TV. And sometimes those kids, if they're men, they will close the curtain. And sometimes we had to get food from and you guys have everything. And so the son said to him, so you didn't have TV, but did you at least have a swimming pool? And he said, no, we didn't have. Like, he was like, no way. You did not have a swimming pool? So his biggest worry was, no, I can see TV, food, swimming pool. You did not have it?
And isn't that a beautiful example of real economic progress and transformation?
Yeah, absolutely.
In my family as well, I'm the first to do many other things, right? I have enough cousins, aunts, even my grandparents who were laborers, and so, thank God for the breakthrough that, my son is having a different, quality of life because of the opportunities that I have been granted. So when like kids say things like that, I find them humorous. I laugh at, I celebrate it. You get people who take offense, and I get it. We still have a lot, a lot to go. We really do. There are people who need chances, breakthroughs, unemployment is high. But I'm also saying those who've managed to just break that cycle, it's also wonderful. We just need the mass, for to the next generations to just have a different quality of life altogether, and a different definition of what a basic standard is, in the home. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think also really determination goes a long way. And I mean, that's why I celebrate you, the trailblazers, women who are blazing trails across the continent and in the diaspora through this platform. Every single one of you, there's a story there, and it had nothing to do with sitting on your laurels and disrespecting your parents and deciding whether you're going to go to school or not go to school. A lot of it has, behind it has there's a sense of discipline. There's a sense of, even if my parents were not there, like, you are a great example. Your parents passed on, but you had every right to just become, like, I don't know, choose a different path and drink and boys and be pregnant and have, 7 kids by now, but he did not choose that path. So I think in as much as sometimes we blame the government, where there are opportunities, there are also people who genuinely just do not care to take them. And we know with the environments where we come from, with the likes of, substance abuse, generational, I don't want to call them curses, but literally habits need to be broken, where it's easier for a person to have the opportunities, but rather choose their father's path. So I don't know. It's a broad conversation that one needs to have on another platform, I suppose. But for now, the lesson that I want a young woman who's sitting somewhere in a rural area, I don't care where in Africa, watching and thinking that, my life is so bad, things are going so wrong, and I don't have it, like I'm not going to make it. You can actually make it, irrespective of where you come from, what circumstances you are brought up in, whether you have parents or not. Yes, it's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy, but here's Palesa today. Like you said, an executive at JSE, and it could be anywhere for that matter. So yeah, I think that's why we have this platform and we share such pearls of wisdom. And for those of your peers watching, and I mean, I think not just your peers, in fact, women, the SAWIL community watching, what would you say is the one thing that makes Palesa who she is today, other than the trials and tribulations that you've had to overcome and paddle through? What makes you who you are?
I think it's my heart, my spirit. Seipati, I believe strongly in not giving up. I think it would be foolish to act like life is meant to be hunky-dory, but I've had so many setbacks. I really have. But if there's something that God really, really gifted me with, is the ability to get up one more time and try again. And that's something that I've learned to celebrate and to call out. My style typically is I just keep quiet. I even struggle with accepting, compliments, but that's something that I have to tell you sets me apart. I've had many challenges. When you look at someone's CV, their profile, their job titles, you don't see the dramas, behind. And I have done that with dignity, grace, without disrespecting myself and without disrespecting those who maybe have not treated me with the kindness that I deserve, and not giving up, and using that as an opportunity to reflect and say, what can I learn from this? And then on to the next. And I'm really proud of that. It took me years to figure it out and identify it, but that's what it is, from my upbringing to really having to struggle with getting a loan after my mom died. As I said, my dad had a substance abuse problem. I don't come from a perfect home, but I knew that there's something better for me. And if it means I scrape money for bursaries, then so be it, there were instances at Rhodes, I didn't have toiletry and my friends would buy me toiletry. And those are stories that people don't hear, right? People just say you got a bursary, but to actually live at school, you need an allowance, something, right? That's the other hurdle.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been easy. And even work-wise, it hasn't been easy. I've had moments, I've had to make tough decisions to leave certain jobs because the dynamic with my leader is not great, but that's not, it doesn't make me who I am, it doesn't define me. So take it on the chin. I see it as scraping the knees. It's a life lesson and I move on. And I think if we all hone in on that, then we wouldn't give up and we would keep the hope going, especially when times are really, really tough. And that's something that I admire about myself, that staying power, the grit, and I hope any girl sitting somewhere, any boy, I'm a boy mom, so I'm quite sensitive about who's having conversations with boys. And I hope that's really what they take away from this, growing up, I didn't even know what the stock exchange is. And now here I am, right? So really it is possible. Anything is possible. We must just not switch off that candle, don't blow out the candle, just hang in hope, but also do actions that advance you towards that. And then like everything else, God will really, really do the rest, but you have to do your part, in the process. So that's something that's really, strong for me to just share with the audience that will be watching.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Really, again, pearls of wisdom. Just maybe in closing, I hope I've covered everything. I think I have. If you were to meet your younger self, let's say about 16, you were to meet your younger self, just as we conclude this session, what would you say to her, and what emotions would that conversation evoke?
It would be that I am enough. I have a talent that I bring into this world. It would be that, Bali, you may be quiet, but you're such an excellent listener. And that's why when people are confused, they say, Palesa, what did we decide and agree? Because I had too many experiences over the last, say, 20 years, where it's like you must be the life of the party to succeed. And, who said, right? It would be that. I was a very shy, recluse child, too scared to speak my mind, share my opinion. And so it would be that, that I have a talent. I'm an excellent listener. I hear what's not being said. And that it is that skill actually that's going to set me up for success. And I would tell my younger self, particularly at the age of 16, that you are fine the way you are.
Yeah, sure. I love that. I really love that. Again, a lot in common, particularly in that just last. People think that we must all be like Bonang to survive in this world. Tire me. they exhaust my soul. So I love seeing, the typical introverts thrive and do marvelous things in this world. It's just like, guys, yeah, there's a place for all of us. So yeah. I love that for young Palesa to finally hear that it's okay. And many other Palesas who are watching, and like you said, the boy child, whoever's watching, that it's okay. It's okay. We don't all have to be, the Steve Harveys of this world to make it. So thank you for those of wisdom. Anything else from your side that you want to share with the audience?
No, just really, really, really humble, Seipati, I don't know. I think I always forget how much, when you're on a platform and as a leader, that people actually are watching what you do. You might just think, oh, let me just do this little thing. But you are influencing somebody, you directing somebody, you are showing somebody it is possible. And when other people see themselves in you, it's even more incredible, And so, for the other finalists, I just think we must keep up the good work beyond SAWIL and this platform, we have to connect and somehow find opportunities to just multiply. Because these are the things that matter, and really and kudos to you, I actually want to have a conversation with you another time about just your story and how do we, catapult it, because, nobody told you, you know what I mean? And I think that's what geniuses are. It's people who have wonderful ideas. They may sound crazy at the beginning, they get it going, and then suddenly, before you know it, you know, it catches on that fire. So I'm encouraged, and I really think, just as these finalists, surely there's an opportunity for us to collaborate and do something even bigger, so that people, you know, that are looking up to us benefit. And that's really what's been a reminder for me, that, gosh, you know, people are watching. So you represent so much more. You represent hope, you represent, you know, influencing others to do the same, to lean in. And I'm just really grateful. That's really the only thing. I can talk for long, as introverted as I am. That's really it. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Palesa. I really love that you represent hope, you represent, more than anything, even career aspirations. You know, there are people who often watch these interviews and say, I didn't know I could be, there's a, you know, a job like that, because they're just starting out. So they don't know that it's possible for you to be an HR director or at the JC. When you think of JC, we're just thinking stocks, like driver, like nobody thinks I can actually work there. It happens, and we underestimate, you know, how many young people, particularly in the rural areas, in the townships, that are not aware of the career opportunities outside of the typical ones that they know. Everybody's still studying for accounting today. Everybody still wants to be a CA, but that's saturated. Like you can like find another path.
Correct.
And exactly, find another path, and you don't know where it will lead you. But if you see examples now, you sort of start to carve your own path. Say, okay, look, that's the trail I want to blaze next. So yeah, you guys represent quite a lot, and thank you so much for, you know, your willingness to share with our community, and congratulations once again. I am putting you on the spot. Are you coming to Cameroon?
I'm still checking my budget here. The intention is to, but you know.
Look, I know it's the stressful one for a lot of people, but yeah, so in case you're wondering why Cameroon, we have a rule at SAWIL, the country that does the most in a particular year, so it's a competition between countries, gets to host the awards. Cameroonians came at guns blazing. They came to South, they even came with a flag at the last award. So they went up, membership, everything. So I was actually, between them and Nigeria, I was worried that, oh no, like, are we ready as SAWIL to leave South Africa and go and go there? But they made sure. So that's the reason. And I don't know, at the rate that things South Africans are participating this year, I doubt that it's coming back home. I really doubt.
Oh man,
the participation is so low from SA. I'm not sure if we're going to be coming home anytime soon, but let's see. Maybe we'll find other ways to encourage our South African sisters to do the same. But again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ceci. Appreciate it.
Cool.
Shall I hang up?
Let me just do this.
Stop recording.